Hello, my name is Zarina Aishamiran and welcome back to part 3 of my Google Cloud series, where today I will be covering the topic of projects, service accounts and billing. In specifics, I will be covering GCP's Resource Hierarchy, their Organisation Policies, GCP's Roles, billing accounts and how to export billing data, and then the exam essentials, so what you need to know to ensure that you're covered in the exam. So let's start off with the resource hierarchy that GCP has. There are 3 core levels. The first is the organization level, the second is the folder level, and the third level is the project or the projects. So I am going to cover each of these levels in greater detail. So let's start off with the organization, which sits at level 1. The organization is literally the root of the hierarchy, and it corresponds to either a company or an organization. So there are 2 ways of implementing this. Say, for example, you have a G Suite, so access to your Gmail, a domain that has access to Gmail and YouTube, etc. Then an organization would then be created in GCP's hierarchy. But what if you don't have a domain within G Suite? Then you would make use of the Cloud Identity as a service that GCP offers, and this is associated with at most one organization. And within an organization, you have a super admin, and that super admin would assign organization admin identity and access management roles to users who manage the organization. And by default, project creator and billing account creators are granted to users within that domain. So let's take a quick look at the organization admin IAM role. If you have this role, then you have the ability to define structures of the resource hierarchy, define IAM policies over resource hierarchy, and delegate management roles to other users. So level 2 would be the folder, and these are kind of like building blocks that make up an organization, and they're managed by policies. So an example would be, you might have your organization and then you split it up into a series of folders. One folder might be for finance, where you would manage accounts that are payable and those that are received, or you might have a folder for software development and you'd have multiple folders within it for each environment, such as dev, test, production, etc. The third level is pretty simple. It's the project level, and it allows you to create resources using GCP services. So this would allow you to create VMs within your project. So now you're probably wondering, how do you control access to an organization? Well, this is where you implement organization policies, and they complement the IAM service. However, the difference between an organization and an IAM policy is that, well, look at it this way. An IAM policy allows you to define who can do what operation, so assigning permissions in the cloud. Whereas organization policies is more about what can be done with the resources, and they are defined in terms of constraints on resources. So there are 2 ways of doing this, either with a list, so allow all particular values as an example, or Boolean constraints. So an example of this would be, maybe you want to disable the serial port access, therefore you would set it to true. You can also make use of policy evaluation, and this is all about protecting your data and resources in the cloud. And an example would be who has access to build APIs or service accounts. Here's a list on my screen of some of the policies that can be implemented. So now it's important to understand roles and identities once your organization is set up. So a role is a collection of permissions, and you would bind a user to a role once it has been implemented. Whereas identities are records used to represent a human user or a service account in GCP. So here's an example. We have Alice. Alice is the human user. Her identity would be alice@example.com, and her role would be create and modify virtual machines. Simple. Okay, so Google Cloud offers 3 types of roles. The first is the primitive role, and this is not always needed by the user, but it provides the basic privileges such as the owner, the editor, and the viewer. The second is the predefined role, which is more common, and it uses the principle of least privilege, which means it grants a user access when needed. The third is custom, and this is pretty straightforward. It allows the cloud admins to create and admin their own roles. So there are a couple of things that you need to understand here when granting roles to identities. First of all, you assign roles to a user using the IAM console, so the Identity Access Management console. The second is that permissions are assigned to roles, not users, and then those roles are assigned to the users. Right, so service accounts. Now, identities are usually humans, right? But sometimes it can be helpful to have an application act on behalf of one. So there are 2 ways of doing this. You can implement a service account where the user manages it, or you can implement a service account where Google manages it. So another really big area is billing. As you know, GCP resources incur charges, so you could make use of the billing API that GCP offers, which allows you to manage how to pay for the resources that are used. So within billing, you have a billing account, and a billing account stores information about how to pay charges for resources used, and they're typically associated with at least 1 or more projects. So there are 2 ways that you can pay what you owe. The first is the self-serve, and this automatically charges to the debit or credit card. The second is invoice, which is used typically by enterprise users, where an invoice is sent directly to them to pay off charges. So there are 4 different types of roles within billing. The first is the billing account creator, which creates new self-service billing accounts. The second is the billing account admin, which manages billing accounts but doesn't allow you to create them. The third is the billing user. This allows a user to link projects to billing accounts. The fourth is the billing viewer, which allows you to view costs. You can also set up billing budgets and alerts, so once a threshold has been met, a message could be pushed to you, the user, so that you can do something about it. So you can make use of pub/sub messages. Learning how to export your billing data is also important if you want to further analyze how you are being charged per resource. And there are 2 ways of exporting billing data. You can export it using BigQuery, or you can export it using cloud storage. The last service that is absolutely essential within GCP is the Stackdriver. And the Stackdriver is a service for monitoring, logging, tracing, and debugging applications and resources. So what's important for the exam regarding this topic? The first is you need to understand the GCP Resource Hierarchy. You also need to understand the Organization Policies, how service accounts are created, the GCP billing situation, and also how to enable APIs and create Stackdriver workspaces. I hope this video was useful. If so, please like, subscribe, and do leave your comments down below because I do read them. And thank you for watching. Bye.